Hello, I figured I'd show my pin collection. Um, some of the things I feel are kind of rare, but I suppose that's true of any pin collection. Most of the pins are about things from the 80s. Some of the pins are much newer than that, but they're still 80s things. So I'll give a brief overview of the collection, and then I'll go into details about some of the things. Okay, so going in here, we have stuff from cartoons and music, science fiction, music, cartoons, and at the bottom, some video games. Okay, so starting at the top, we have these two. They're identical. Uh, it's a comic called Milk and Cheese. It's pretty funny, but in small doses. There are two characters that beat up things that they don't like. And I got that fairly recently at a comic convention. A friend of mine went and I asked him to look and see if they had these because it's hard to get them online, and he picked them up for me, which was nice of him. This is the Apple logo. I bought that in the early 90s, I believe. Apple Computer used to have a catalog where you could buy shirts and pens and other things with the Apple logo on it, and I picked this up back then. This is Megaforce Records. They had a concert in a club in the city for their 5th anniversary. A couple bands played, Testament, Prophet, King's X, MOD, SOD, Anthrax, pretty much Anthrax is SOD. The concert was a little bit much for me because in between the different acts, you had to wait for them to set up for the next one, and it took a real long time, which I guess was good for this place because they had a bar and people would wander over to the bar to kill some time. And I think Testament got pissed at the setup and they kicked over their stuff. Okay, some more music. This is the band D.R.I. These are relatively new. I got them within the past couple of years. I got this one, which is their, the colors of their logo. And when I saw that they also had this one, I thought this one kind of looked cooler in some ways, so I picked that up as well. This is a Van Halen pin that I got back in the 80s. It was probably on my denim jacket that I had at the time. Same thing with this Def Leppard one. Pretty much all these here, Judas Priest, Quiet Riot, Dio, Rat. I got all these back in the 80s. I had two others, a Def Leppard and an Iron Maiden one, but I probably lost them when I wore them on my coat. So I'll get back to that in a minute or so. Okay, the Breeders. This came with a live CD of theirs, so I kept it here. This was a gift. There's an anime called Claymore that I think it aired on IFC, but it probably came from somewhere before that. And I thought these were pretty cool, and somebody gave it to me as a gift. These I think are fairly rare. This is interesting, so I'll spend a minute on this. For those of you that don't know, this is the comic Life in Hell. On the left, you have Binky, Sheba, and Bongo. And the other pin is just of Bongo. And these are precursors of The Simpsons. Matt Groening did this before he did The Simpsons. In fact, I think the story is that before The Simpsons was The Simpsons, they asked him to pitch something, and he was going to pitch this, but he didn't want to give it up. So he made up The Simpsons on the fly because he wanted to retain the rights to this. Now, back when I got this would be, I guess, the late 80s, before The Simpsons came out, maybe 87, 88, I'm not exactly sure. I used to read The Village Voice just to read Life in Hell. And I found that Matt Groening with some other people had a catalog called, I believe, the Melrose Catalog. And inside the Melrose Catalog, they had all sorts of things that you could buy, shirts. I bought 2 Life in Hell shirts, one of Bongo, one of Work is Hell. And they also had stuff by other of his contemporaries, their books, like Linda Barry and things like that. But I like these pins, and I think there was another one that was just of Binky, and I didn't get that. I kind of regret that, but I'm really happy to have these because I'd say that these are pretty rare. Okay, and somebody got me this Sideshow Bob pin. This, I believe, is completely fake because if you look at it, it looks like it was printed on an inkjet printer or something way back, and they just slapped it on. So I guess this is one of those bootlegs that Matt Groening hates so much, but, you know, it was a gift, so I'm keeping it here. Then the next batch are Star Trek The Next Generation. I liked that show when it aired, and I used to get some magazine like Cinema Fantastique, I don't know how to pronounce it, because they had episode guides in it. So in the back of the episode guides, they had stuff that you could buy. And I obviously like pins, so I picked up these. Like, I really wanted this small one here, but then I think you could order a bunch and save money. So I got these two. They're bigger, obviously. They came in a little display case, but I threw that away. This one is from the episode, I think it's called Future Imperfect, which I thought was a cool episode. So that's pretty much why I ordered these two pins. And the rest, they're not, you know, I don't know, like the Enterprise, that seems kind of lame. These things, like that's the Borg logo, not that thrilled with it, but, you know, they're okay. Like these two are pretty much the same. Okay, so moving on. Going back to the 80s, well, actually the 90s. I didn't get into the Dead Milkman until the 90s. The pin on the right is the one that I bought way back then, and the one on the left is one that I got recently. There's a record company called 6 Feet Under Records, and they have a bunch of punk bands on it, and they made this pin. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh wow, that's awesome. It looks, you know, so good, so much better than my original pin. So I ordered it online, and I'm really pleased with it. And I'll get back to that company in a minute because I realized that I could order directly from them and get stuff at a better price, obviously. So going down, you have the newer stuff, although that's another D.R.I. pin that I got back in the day. It's old, but the other two are much nicer than this one, but it's nice to still have that one. Okay, so you have Overkill. I got this recently from a website. It's well made. I always felt that the lime green logo was a little bit much, but I saw it and it was fairly cheap. I think it was like $9 and it's 2 inches across, so it's a good get. Now this one is the Iron Maiden one. As I mentioned before, I had an Iron Maiden pin back in the day, and since Iron Maiden was one of my favorite bands, I lost it. It was probably on my coat and fell off. And I went to some websites and I saw stuff for like much less, but this one seemed nicer and it was on Iron Maiden's official website. So I bought it, but it was like $25 after shipping. And there was another website that had it for like $7. But when I compared the two, this one seemed nicer, so I ordered it directly from Iron Maiden. I'm tempted to buy the other one just to see if it's the same exact thing, because that would be, you know, kicking the teeth that you could have gotten the same thing for like a third of the price. Okay, going down a little bit, we have Def Leppard. Once again, I got this recently, but I had it back in the day. I think I got this on eBay. And it's not as nice as the one from back then, but when I ordered it, they gave me a bunch of them. You know, I'm not sure how many others I have, but okay. This is another Dead Milkman pen. I got this directly from that website that I mentioned before, 6 Feet Under, and it's from their first album, Big Lizard in My Backyard. You'll see that I have another pin from back in the day like this. And then going, well, we'll go here, Dead Kennedys. I picked this up recently. It's a nice pin, but when I bought it, I thought it looked different. As you can see, it's silver, and when I saw it online, it looked like it was black and white. Silver, of course, is nicer, and I think that's probably what the original logo was going for, that it was silver on red, but it's normally when you see it, it's like white and black, because the black is kind of simulating the reflection that you see in real life. But this pin is nice, but it's smaller than I expected. It's about the size of a nickel, but I like it. Going a little further is another, not another, but another 6 Feet Under Records thing. They had this pin. When I saw this, I'm like, oh, I got to get that. Murphy's Law. It's a pretty cool logo. And then we'll go down a little bit because this is also a Murphy's Law pin from 6 Feet Under Records. I thought it was funny, the Killer Beer from their first album. Okay, so going up a little bit. This is from the 90s, the Dead Milkmen. As you saw, over here you have this one, which is nicer, but this is the square pin that I got when I first got into the band. And then going down, you have the Overkill logo that I got back probably mid-80s, I guess. Because like it looks a lot like this one, but I assume that I got them at different times. But here's the Overkill with the Overkill logo, and here's the new Overkill logo one, in case you forgot from 2 minutes ago. Now, this bunch is kind of why I'm making the video, because these are probably the rarest pins that I have and the most interesting. Here we have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which of course are very famous now these days. But I got this from, I think, the 3rd issue of their comic. In case you didn't know, when they first came out, the comics were in black and white. And I think I got into them when their 3rd issue came out, or maybe the 2nd, because I know I went back and I went to the comic book store because friends were talking about this, how funny it was, and like the characters were from like Daredevil, like their origin story is the origin story of Daredevil, like, but you know, in the Daredevil, he got hit by the can of like nuclear waste or something, and they had in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the comic, that nuclear waste, after it hit Daredevil in the face, it hit a jar of turtles and they became, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But anyway, in the back of either the 2nd or 3rd or 4th issue of the comic, they had an ad for stuff. And the ad was for things like a t-shirt iron-on that I bought, and these pins. And these pins, as you can see, they're numbered. Mine are 72 out of 1,000. And I believe what it was like, these are hand inked by maybe the creators. I'm not sure. It's been a long time, and I gave away all my comics like 10, 20 years ago. But I held on to these. So I think they're kind of like, probably, you know, they printed each one out and then they hand inked it and then hand numbered them. And I bought the comic the day it came out, and when I saw this, I was like, oh, gotta get that. And I ordered it right away, and I got number 72. So I'd say that these are pretty unique, since only 1,000 of them were made. And then finishing off, we have video games from the 80s. Start with Pac-Man, because Pac-Man was a big deal to me when I was a kid. I loved it. A couple of years ago, I saw this pin at Target, and I bought it. And it's a pretty good deal for like the amount of pins you get. You get Pac-Man and all of the ghosts. But at the same time, they had the Space Invaders one. And I was like, don't need that. And then it's like 3 years later, and recently I went online and I found these and I got them. And it was actually a pretty good price. It was pretty much the same price that they cost at the time. And of course, Space Invaders is a simple game, so the guys are simply made, you know, pixel art, but, you know, they're pretty nice. They were bigger than I thought. When I got them, I kind of pictured it being, you know, small when I ordered them online, even though I had seen them, and I should have realized that they would be the same size as the Pac-Man ones, but, you know, they're nice. So that's pretty much it. I have some other pins, but these I feel are my nicest ones. and I figured some people might be interested because of, as I said, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones are pretty rare, and I'd say that the Life in Hell ones are also pretty rare. So, okay, that's it. Have a good one, guys.